On March 11th, 1959, a diver would be going about his day like any other, beneath the waves off of Miami Beach, but suddenly, his day would change. A large crustacean resembling a lobster, perhaps even a long extinct sea scorpion, would suddenly meet his gaze, causing him to dip, or rather, surface from the scene of the sighting. Welcome to Cryptid Corner, the series All Things Cryptids, and today we're going to cover Specs, Miami Beach's giant lobster. Miami Beach in Florida is a beautiful resort city that sees millions of people every year flocking in to enjoy the nice beachside vacations, along with several museums and other points of interest. But I'd recommend you plan your trip accordingly, because if you decide to go in, say, the early winter, you might find yourself swimming amongst millions of sharks migrating, although attacks are somewhat rare. The shallow, nutrient rich waters that are influenced by the Gulf Stream, along with the reefs and rock formations, including the northmost parts of Florida's coral reef tract, has blessed this area with diverse wildlife that calls this region home. Many tours are done with guides bringing out tourists on glass floored boats to give them a glimpse into the magical underwater worlds, with divers, coming along to help and assist in these, pointing out many certain features and little guys. But one of these tours didn't go the way that diver Bob Wall, not to be confused with the legendary actor and martial artist of Enter the Dragon fame, to be expected. Although the idea of him going underwater and fighting a lobster while Bruce Lee watches and quips jokes from the top is pretty funny, admittedly. On March 11th, off the coast of Miami Beach, Bob was doing his usual job, diving beneath the boat in order to point out some aquatic critters to those watching from above. Bob was about 35 feet underwater when all of a sudden he would notice an underwater cave, and out of curiosity, he would take a peek inside, bringing him face to face with a bizarre creature. Bob claimed the creature had a long cylindrical body similar to a lobster that he estimated to be about 5.5 feet long, with 8 hairy legs that elevated it 3 feet off of the cave floor. It also possessed long stalked eyes, each about the size of a dollar bill, which gave the creature its name, Specs, most likely. Specs, either out of curiosity or in a territorial display, would begin to approach Bob, causing him to promptly nope the fuck out of there. Interestingly, following Bob Wall's encounter, the Miami Seaquarium would launch a search for this bizarre creature, with 5 divers allegedly being tasked in capturing it and bringing it to the aquarium. Although nothing would come of this search and Specs would never be seen again. Bob Wall's encounter with Specs has led many to wonder just what it could be, with 2 popular explanations popping up. First and most wild of all of them is that Specs is a surviving Eurypterid, an extinct group of marine arthropods that are often referred to as sea scorpions. Eurypterids were populous in the oceans for extremely long periods of time, spanning the Darwinian period about 467 million years ago, all the way into the late Permian, some 250 million years ago. And on top of being common, some Eurypterids even reached gargantuan sizes, with the Jacalopterus, who reached a body length of 8.2 feet, eclipsing the estimated length of Specs, and also most likely being an apex predator in the ancient oceans. They would rule over the oceans for millions of years until eventually the end Permian extinction, known as the Great Dying, would wipe out massive amounts of life, with 90% of all life on Earth at this time going extinct. To put this into perspective, just how devastating this extinction was, the end Cretaceous extinction, which is responsible for the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs, would see 75% of life go extinct. And to make this worse for the Eurypterids, the end Permian was even harsher on ocean life, as 95% of all ocean life would go extinct, including the Eurypterids who would perish in this calamity. Perhaps a Eurypterid had survived and evolved in marine caves, not being found until that diver would stick his head into that cave that day. After all, this is a very close match for Specs. I've covered Eurypterids and just how unlikely it is for them to have survived in my video on the Konzit, but to give you a summary on just how unlikely this is, not only would they have needed to survive the Great Dying, which is what we know wiped them out currently, but they would have also had to survive the End Triassic extinction, the End Cretaceous extinction, and the Ice Age, which, in fairness, they did make it out of an ice age themselves. But on top of all of this, they would have needed to competed with every marine animal to call the oceans home that challenged their niche for 250 million years, which is even more unlikely as Eurypterids were also greatly impacted by the Devonian extinction which they managed to survive, which greatly weakened their grasp over the ocean, leading to colossal sea scorpions dying out and making way for newer organisms to pass them as apex predators in the ocean. And a smaller nitpick that was mentioned by Carl Schuker is the fact that Eurypterids didn't have stalked eyes. Although, if a sea scorpion was given hundreds of millions of years to evolve, their eyes might change a little bit, including some other features. I do think that it is quite unlikely, although I wouldn't rule them out, as several marine organisms have withstood the test of time and have survived several marine extinction events, evolving and overcoming hardships, but without fossil evidence or living specimens of any past Eurypterids beyond 250 million years ago, nothing can be proven. A more likely explanation is that Specs was simply a giant lobster. You know, like the ones that you fight in Elden Ring, but a lot smaller. I don't know why, whenever I think of a giant crustacean, I just think of these lobsters. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Crustaceans are capable of reaching gargantuan sizes, so one getting around this size isn't too unrealistic, especially if Specs' size was exaggerated. Personally, I feel like this is a bit of an exaggerated encounter with a particularly large lobster. And yeah, I just think this is the most likely. But at the same time, it is very likely that this could be a hoax, as there was only one sighting, and despite having an entire boatload of people watching above, no witness can attest to seeing Specs. Although they probably couldn't see it due to the angle of the cave, but it still stands. There was no other eyewitness there to, attest on his behalf, and there were no sightings after. And those 5 divers didn't find anything either, so, I mean, there is a high likelihood that this is a hoax. But hey, that's not the fun answer. Specs is quite the bizarre cryptid, but then again, we are in Florida, so what isn't a bizarre cryptid? The likelihood that Miami Beach is home to an extinct lineage of sea scorpions is highly unlikely, although a giant lobster isn't entirely out of the question. The ocean is quite a mysterious place. We might even have a lot more to learn in the shallow end of the great big swimming pool of our planet. But hey, that's what we're all about. Over here at Cryptic Corner, we learn shit, even if it isn't something that is going to help us in day-to-day life or help us get like a good education or job. We still learn shit, goddammit. Now you know about one giant lobster that you didn't know about yesterday. Man, this video just makes me want to go take a trip down to Miami Beach. In search of Specs, of course, nothing else. Very professional research. It's, not a vacation, but a expedition, if you will. And that is going to do it for Specs. Thank you all for watching. This was a pretty interesting one. I've always had this one kind of looming in the back of my head, ever since I first came across. I think I first heard about it in the Wendigoon cryptid iceberg, and I don't know, I've just been kind of thinking about that giant lobster ever since. That and the giant lobsters from Elden Ring. But again, thank you all for watching. This was a very interesting video. I believe this kind of is a suggestion because someone a while back asked for a crustacean-related cryptid, I think it was like a crab or something, but this is kind of a late sort of answer to that question. Like what crustacean cryptids you got? Well, you got one now. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like. What do you think about Specs? Make sure to comment down below. I love reading your comments. If you got any suggestions on any cryptids, let me know, especially some more American cryptids. Because I don't know, I kind of like to balance it a bit. And I've been finding a lot of cryptids from all over the world and a few less from America. But any cryptid that you'd like me to cover, make sure to comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. Uh, Make sure to subscribe if you like this content and ring that bell for more. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.